There it is. The government remains partially shut down, as you can probably tell by the fact that you're not being held in contempt by people who do nothing in return for seizing a portion of your income. And in this terrible crisis, President Trump and the Democrats continue to try to reopen the government, for some reason, by negotiating a compromise on the issue of border security. To begin with, the president requested $5 billion, which at government prices would pay for the phone call to the guy who makes the canvas bags that would hold enough cement to build a 3-inch high section of wall stretching from Arizona to another part of Arizona approximately 5 feet away. In response, the Democrats offered to lavish welfare on anyone who happened to wander into America from some crap hole country or other, unless or until they murdered an innocent bystander, whereupon they would be barred from receiving medical insurance unless they felt particularly under the weather. Trying to demonstrate his flexibility, President Trump then offered to naturalize all 300 farm workers on Nancy Pelosi's Napa Valley estate in return for $4 billion, or enough money to ask directions to Rupert's hardware store in El Paso, where Rupert has offered to build 4 miles of the damn wall himself if it would prevent Mexican drug dealers from dumping bodies in his wife's garden every other night. In response, the Democrats have offered to lower the sentence for rape to 3 months probation in order to help all those sad-eyed Honduran children in CNN news stories by not putting the men pretending to be their fathers in prison where they belong. Trump counteroffered with amnesty for Hillary Clinton in return for a framed photograph of a wall signed by Dwayne Johnson, suitable for hanging in the Oval Office. The Democrats countered by offering to raise the top tax rate to 98%, abolish the Electoral College, stack the Senate and the Supreme Court, and burn every copy of the Constitution they could find. So the negotiations continue. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Oh, to be a Democrat now that January is here. It must be so relaxing. If you're a Democrat, you can literally advocate ripping 9-month-old babies to pieces and be hailed as a champion of women's rights. You can advocate anti-Israel policies that would lead to the murder of 6 million Jews and then call your opponent Hitler. You can use the foulest language imaginable and get pasted on a magazine cover as a daring new voice. Whereas if you even vote Republican, newsmen, Hollywood celebrities, and other lowlifes will instantly brand you a racist, hate-filled, racist, old, racist, Oxycontin-addicted racist. But you know what? It's worth it just to keep the levers of power away from these miserable leftist crackpots. Let's take a look at what they're up to in just a second. But first, we have to talk about Lightstream, because I know what the holidays are like. You go out there with your credit card, you're a generous guy, you want to give your wife or husband or boyfriend or girlfriend nice presents, and then January comes and suddenly this bill comes from your credit card company and you think, why, oh why was I such a nice, generous guy? But you can handle that with Lightstream. With Lightstream, you can get a loan that consolidates your credit card debt, and it will lower your interest rate and save you lots of dough. You can get a rate as low as 6.14% APR with autopay and save thousands in interest. The rate is fixed, so as rates continue to rise, your low rate won't budge. You can get a loan from $5,000 to $100,000 and get your money as soon as the day you apply. The application is 100% online and there are no fees. And my listeners can save even more with an additional interest rate discount. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/Andrew. That's lightstream.com/Andrew. This is subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.50% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/Andrew for more information. By the way, I should just mention, Michael Knowles is going to be here later to talk about, to answer the question, should women be allowed to vote? This is a very important question after watching the women who came into the House over the last week. But, you know, people always ask me why I'm so mean to Michael Knowles. I don't know if you were watching Backstage, on which Michael Knowles announced that he is going to do the audiobook of Another Kingdom, which you can pre-order the novel now. You can pre-order the audiobook now, and he's going to be recording the audiobook. He didn't even tell me about it. I learned about this when you learned about it if you were watching Backstage. That's why we're so nasty to him, because this is the way the guy behaves to his friends. All right, so while Mitt Romney and the Never-Trumpers are brooding over the flaws in Donald Trump's doubtlessly flawed character, here's what the new House majority of Democrats got up to. They drafted a bill to abolish the Electoral College. They drafted a bill to make voter registration automatic, so you don't need any identification. You don't need to sign up. You can be dead. You're just suddenly registered. I wonder why they want that. If the Supreme Court gets in the way of the leftist agenda, what do they want to do? We don't have to wonder, because our old friend Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was asked about this at a preview for a Michael Moore film, and here is what she said we would do. Here's the question and the answer to what she would do with the Supreme Court. This is cut 11.
In a few months from now, the Supreme Court looks like, I'm pretty scared it's going to, a court that would overturn Roe and make the president above the rule of law. What is to be done?
I think that we take back the House, we take back the Senate, we take back the presidency, and we pack the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
Next, you pack the Supreme Court, because then we get what we want and it doesn't matter. We just put enough people in there. So, you know, she's so cute. And people keep writing to me and telling me what a sexist I am, because I keep pointing out the fact that she's a very attractive young woman. And I know right-wingers think that everything goes the way they like it. So if they don't like her, what she stands for, they think she's unattractive, but she's not. She's a very pretty girl. And it may be sexist, but here's the thing. Women and men have different strengths and different weaknesses, different powers, and different vulnerabilities. Who can deny that a pretty young woman has a sense of confidence and entitlement that other people don't have, including women who are not as pretty, and certainly including men? Whoever turns to a beautiful young woman and says, you know what, you're kind of an idiot? Nobody does that. Maybe other women, but no men does that. And you can tell she radiates this confidence while she is so ignorant of anything, that she doesn't know how she would pay for any of her plans. She doesn't know the traditions of America. She doesn't know the laws of America. And where do you get that kind of confidence if it's not from the fact that she is young and pretty and vibrant? And like, even I find her likable. I just find her a complete idiot. If I met her, I would probably like her. She was asked, Anderson Cooper had her on, and just this incredible softball interview, the kind of thing that you would expect. But he asked her about the fact that she doesn't know anything, that everything she says is untrue. This is cut number, which one is this? This is cut number 4.
One of the criticisms of you is that your math is fuzzy. The Washington Post recently awarded you 4 Pinocchios.
Oh my goodness.
For misstating some statistics about Pentagon spending.
If people want to really blow up one figure here or one word there, I would argue that they're missing the forest for the trees. I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
But being factually correct is important.
It's absolutely important. And whenever I make a mistake, I say, okay, this was clumsy. And then I restate what my point was. But it's not the same thing as the president lying about immigrants. It's not the same thing at all.
So, first of all, I don't know what lies she's referring to. It seems to me that Donald Trump has got the immigrant story pretty much right. I mean, criminals come in through the border. Terrorists, suspected terrorists come across the border. We need border security. We all know it. Everybody except Miss Ocasio-Cortez. But, you know, what she just said there was, what difference does it make if you know the facts, as long as you're moral? But of course, the whole point is you can't be moral without knowing the facts. So these are our new congresswomen, our new congress people from the left. You can't be moral if you don't know the facts, because how can you get the right result if you don't know what the facts are? You know, it's ridiculous. Listen, I have this problem on the right as well. I have this problem when people start talking about that they want a country that when people start talking about fixing the problems in a country that doesn't exist, when they start talking about how morality should be the same as it was before there was birth control, that's all well and good to say that, but it's not going to happen because birth control changes everything. It changes the consequences. And the one thing the founders knew is they knew human nature, they knew its weaknesses, they knew its sinfulness and its excesses and its greed, and they played to that. And if you can't play to that, because you don't know the facts of life, you can't be a moral person. You can be a moral person yourself, but you cannot work toward a moral nation, and you cannot work toward moral solutions if you don't know the facts. But it doesn't matter because she is Alexandrian. Everybody loves her, and that's going to be that's what gives her the confidence that she has. I'm sure she grew up with a lot of confidence, as we now know from our fearless reporter Michael Knowles. We now know that she grew up in a very fancy part of Westchester, where both Knowles and I lived at different times. So they ask her, she's got this thing, the Green Agenda, which basically is a government takeover of business. That's going to work. I mean, that has made Venezuela basically a paradise. And Anderson Cooper actually took the time to ask her where this money, how she was going to pay for this. This is cut number 6.
Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. That doesn't mean all $10 million are taxed at an extremely high rate, but it means that as you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more.
What you are talking about, just big picture, is a radical agenda compared to the way politics is done right now.
Well, I think that it only has ever been radicals that have changed this country. Abraham Lincoln made the radical decision to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Franklin Delano Roosevelt made the radical decision to embark on establishing programs like Social Security. That is radical.
Do you call yourself a radical?
Yeah, if that's what radical means, call me a radical.
Don't you dream of being a Democrat, that you can get away with stuff like this? A woman you could actually move furniture into her brain because there's so much empty space in there, and she can say things like that, and nobody says a word. Nobody comes out and says, why is this woman on television? Why is she being asked questions? I mean, except to expose her. More stuff that was coming out as the clowns. I mean, I feel like I'm singing that Sondheim song, Send in the Clowns, as the clowns come in and take over the House and get the majority in the House. I just want to let you know what they're up to, so at least we know the facts and what we're talking about. But first, we have to talk about Ring. I love this thing. It is really important. It is really important to keep your home secure and safe. That's why there are 1 million people using the amazing Ring video doorbell to help protect their homes. Somebody rings at the door. You can see them. You can talk to them. You can address them. You can challenge them. It makes a really big difference in your security. And since Ring knows home security begins at the front door, but it doesn't end there, they're now extending that same level of security to the rest of your home with the Ring floodlight cam. This is very cool. People walk in, the floodlights go up, you can challenge them again. And just like Ring's amazing doorbell floodlight cam is a motion-activated camera, and it connects a floodlight right, and it connects right to your phone. You can look at your phone no matter where you are and check on the safety of your house. You can save up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit when you go to ring.com/Klavan. That's ring.com/Klavan. Save $150 off a Ring of Security kit. You'll feel much better, and you'll have a lot more money in your wallet. That's ring.com/Klavan. Somebody comes to your door, you press the button, you say, how do you spell Klavan? If he can't answer, if he doesn't know, there are no E's in Klavan, call the police. So what is so amazing, what I just envy so much about the Democrats, is the way they get treated for the things they do. Another thing they are trying to do is they're talking a lot about making the Senate proportional representation. So in other words, they think it's unfair. This is a big thing on the left. They think it's unfair that each state, no matter how many people are in the state, get 2 senators no matter what, right? It's the House where they have proportional representation. So they don't understand that our founders were trying to make a federation of states, right? It's the United States, and they wanted to make sure there was a balance between the states and the federal government, a balance of power between the states who could run themselves and the federal government. That's why you have gun rights. You have gun rights because when they said, well, wait, if the federal government runs the United States Army, how will we defend ourselves from attack? And they said, well, you can form a militia because all of your people will be allowed to have guns and that freedom shall not be abridged. That was the balance they were trying to create. And they keep going back to, well, it was all about slavery. No, for some states it was about slavery, but for the rest it was about being a free, independent state and joining this group of people. So why don't they like that? It's all about power. It's like, give me power. I wish Democrats would just speak honestly. I wish they would just give that speech. Give me power. I want power. Give it to me. I want the power. Instead of talking about climate change, never mind climate. Just give me that power. I want it so much. That would be like such a much more honest speech. You got a little of that from our pal. What's her name? Rashida Tlaib. This anti-Israel. She's the woman who went in her office and pasted a little sticky note, or someone pasted a sticky note on the map over Israel saying Palestine. She's a woman who strongly supports the kind of boycotts that could destroy the state of Israel, the only free nation. She's obviously Islamic, and she just feels really, really like, it's these young women, they have so much confidence, but what is it based on? Why, can we not question why they feel so self-confident when they got nothing? And she came out with this rabid hatred of Trump. She made this speech that got a lot of press. We'll play it, obviously edited.
People love you and you win. Woo! And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
So first of all, that's her talking to her child. I wonder how old Juan is. Like, is he 5? Is he, she's saying, yeah, what, mommy, what's a mother effer? It's like, this is the way. This is that kind of that self-affirming confidence that these people bring to the House while they hatch plans to raise the, top tax rate to 70%, which effectively would be 80%, to take over the marketplace by government fiat in order to save us from climate change. Give me power. I just want, please. I want it so much. As they make all these plans to rewrite and basically trash the Constitution. But they're so what happens? What happens when a Democrat congresswoman calls the president of the United States a mother effer? We know what happens when Donald Trump says anything rude, when he says anything unkind, when he says anything crass. That's CNN 24-hour coverage. That is 24-hour coverage. If he calls a country a crap hole country, oh my Lord, that is 24 hours of CNN programming where the guys just repeat this slur over and over again, repeat the obscenity over and over again. What does Rashida Tlaib get when she calls the president of the United States a mother effer? Here's it's in the Washington Post, where democracy dies in rabid hatred of America. We get an op-ed. What's so wrong with mother effer? What's so wrong? This is Molly Roberts, who writes for the Post's opinion section. She writes, the argument from the pro-civility crusaders is that talking this way is sinking to Trump's level. That's wrong. It not only misses the meaningful difference between words and actions, but it doesn't even grasp the difference between words and other words. Mother effer is filler. It means little more than someone more unpleasant than unpleasant can convey. Saying you grab women by the blank, on the other hand, is truly damaging because Trump never said that. He said women will let you do things to them if you are a celebrity. That's what he said. But that is truly damaging. It turns members of that gender into something to be played with, calling immigrants an infestation, dehumanize them. So they get to decide, just like with the dog whistles, they get to decide what's hateful, what's not hateful. It's so much fun to be a Democrat. And by the way, this thing with Rashida Tlaib's anti-Semitism is real. Marco Rubio, she is called, as I said, she's called for boycotts of Israel and all this stuff. Marco Rubio tweeted today that the government shutdown is not the reason that Senate Democrats don't want to move to dealing with a Middle East security bill. They shot this down. A huge argument broke out at a Senate Dem meeting last week over boycotting Israel. A significant number of Senate Democrats now support that, and Democrat leaders want to avoid a floor vote that reveals their support for that. So what happens when you're an anti-Semite? We know what happens if you say, oh, we want to build a border wall on the right. We know they say, well, you just want to keep out the brown people. But what happens if you're an actual anti-Semite? What happens if you hang out with Louis Farrakhan, like some of the people who run the Women's March? LA Times. Can you admire Louis Farrakhan and still advance the cause of women? Maybe so. Life is full of contradictions. See, there's nuance when you're a Democrat. You can hate Jews and still be a good person, just like you can kill babies and still be a good person, just like you can call the president an obscenity. It is so much fun to be a Democrat. I really, really envy them. However, I'm going to stick to being a Republican because these people cannot be allowed to run the country, even if it means sometimes putting up with a little rudeness from Trump, a little bad behavior from Trump. They have to be stopped. Now, I want to turn from that to a cultural story, because the culture matters a lot to me. I think it is where the battles of America are actually fought and won and lost. And last night they had the Golden Globes, and that's not what I'm going to be talking about because I don't care about the Golden Globes. The Golden Globes is a bunch of drunken international journalists whose opinion nobody cares about. Just kind of they like the perks they get for having an award ceremony, so they build it up. So last night's was not as bad. Who won? I think Green Book won for drama, which drove the left insane because it has a nice relationship between a white man and a black man in it. They don't like that. It's always got to be the white person's always got to be oppressive, and it can't have any nice white people. But mostly, it was kind of unpolitical. They even made jokes about being nice and not getting too political. Christian Bale was the worst. He's starred in Vice, which is that attack on Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. Big surprise. Hollywood doesn't like Republicans. What a shock. I'm going to run out to the movie theater to see that because it's so important to me to know what these guys think. So here is Bale at the awards ceremony attacking thanking Adam McKay, the director, and attacking Dick Cheney, who he plays in the movie.
He said, I've got to find somebody who can be absolutely charisma-free and reviled by everybody. So he went, that's got to be Bale in it, Thank you. And for all the competition, I will be cornering the market on charisma-free. What do you think? Mitch McConnell next? That could be good, couldn't it? Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
So Christian Bale, by the way, one of our writers at the Daily Wire pointed out that when he went on Fox News to promote the film, he spoke very highly, very nicely about Dick Cheney. And I know some stuff about Christian Bale that I'm not allowed to say, but he does conform differently. But let's also remember that this is a guy who was questioned about beating up his mother in Britain. This was the guy who famously went off on the DP, the director of photography, on it was Terminator Salvation, I think, where he screamed at the guy for walking in his eye line while he was trying to act, and he just unloaded all these obscenities. So whenever you hear people in Hollywood talking, you always have to remember that these are not the stately statesmen and pastors and high-brow people. These are people who are, you used to lock up your daughters when actors came to town because you knew they were disreputable. Now they're still disreputable, but we listen to their opinions, and that is what we expect from Hollywood. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me was Peggy Noonan's latest column. And let me begin this by saying, I love Peggy Noonan. I have a lot of respect for her. I've said it before. She was one of the few women columnists who writes like a woman. She's gracious. She's open-minded. She's warm. She is generous to the people on the other side. I don't always agree with her. That's not required. But I always find her opinion really interesting and different. She has a lot of experience as a speechwriter in the Reagan administration, so she knows how government works. I really like her, and when I strongly disagree with this column, it is not a personal attack on her. It is simply something that cut me to the quick, okay? She wrote a column called Baby, There's a Chilling Effect Outside, about the effect of political correctness on the arts. And she starts out by saying, my greatest hope for 2019 is cultural. It is that the left will rise and do what only it can do, strike a blow against political correctness in the arts and entertainment. All artists are meant to be free and daring. And she talks about how this has a chilling effect, this political correctness. People are quiet, people shut down. She talks about Baby, It's Cold Outside. She talks about famous works of art that could not be made now because they would be shouted down for being politically incorrect. So here's the key paragraph that kind of it hurt my heart to read this. She said, but an end to political correctness in the arts and entertainment cannot come from the right. It can come only from the left. All the organs of entertainment and art in America, from Broadway to Hollywood through Netflix, the museums and onward, are entities of the cultural left. They are run and populated by the cultural left. They have the pertinent power. When conservatives write or speak against limits on free speech, what they say is heard by the left as mere reaction, a cover for intolerance, and so it's dismissed. The left will listen only to entities of the left who say enough. Art needs air, and that air is freedom, and she calls on the left to get rid of political correctness. So here's what I'm thinking. I am busting my chops creating culture. I know other right-wing artists busting their chops creating culture. I just happen to be particularly good at it. Knowles and Jonathan Hay and I, we made those podcasts, Another Kingdom. The novel will be out in March. The audiobook with Knowles reading will be out in March. If this is not a work of culture, I don't know what is. Where is the right recognizing the stuff that is being done in spite of the fact that all the corporate entities, the Netflix and the movie and the Hollywood entities, that they all do belong to the left? In other words, instead of calling for the left to heal itself, why isn't Peggy Noonan giving some love to the people on the right? We're the revolution. We're the cultural revolution, but there is simply no infrastructure on the right to call us to mind, to bring attention to us, to award us for the work we do, and to reward us for the work we do with reviews. Instead of calling on the left to continue their cultural onslaught, but do it without the political correctness that gets in the way of their talent, because many leftist artists are talented too. I'm not saying they should be shut down at all. I'm simply saying, why should someone on the right, like Peggy Noonan, who is so talented and so insightful, why should she be calling for the left to heal itself instead of calling for the right to heal itself? Who cares what they think? Who cares what the New York Times thinks? Who cares? Why isn't Another Kingdom being reviewed in the Wall Street Journal? Because we seriously do not care what the New York Times thinks of us. We think they are old fuddy-duddies, closed-minded, miserable leftist fools. We don't want their good reviews, but it would be nice if instead of calling for the left to heal itself, Peggy was in the paper calling for right-wing artists who are working so hard in such difficult situations to be recognized, calling for an infrastructure to award them, to give them grants, to give them awards, to give them the love, which is what artists work for. It drove me crazy. It drives me crazy that the assumption that all art is made by the left is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you grant them that, once you say, well, that's just the way it is, all art will be made by the left forever. All culture will be formed by the left forever. And by the time you show up at the ballot box, it's not going to matter. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference because people's minds and hearts will have been shaped by the art that they see. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. As Percy Shelley said, as Andrew Breitbart liked to say, politics is downstream from culture. They shape the conscience, the artists shape the conscience of their people. And to cede that incredibly powerful power to that incredibly powerful throne to the left, instead of turning around and offering a hand to the right, is just a major mistake. Speaking of Michael Knowles, star of Another Kingdom, he is going to join us in just a moment to talk about the fact that women are allowed to vote. Who knew? I don't know how this happened. It must have been when I was paying attention to somebody else, and he's going to come on in just a minute. But first, I got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Come over to dailywire.com and subscribe. You can watch the whole show streaming right there. You can be in the mailbag where I answer all your questions with the actual correct answers. You get Knowles' show, you get Shapiro's show, you get Walsh. You get a lot of stuff, and if you subscribe, for a year, it's $100 lousy bucks. And you get the Leftist Tears tumbler, which is all you will need to get through the coming months. Michael Knowles is coming up.